Okay, welcome everyone to this week's Hello Drunk World. I almost forgot what it's called. I think we're up to 8 or 9 at this point, so get started with the wine ASMR. Did I get it right?
ASMR.
ASMR?
Yes.
Yeah, I can never get that right. As you may see some of the titles, this is the...
Like I'm being so mean sometimes when I say things, but I really don't mean to be mean.
If you can hear the voice in the background, it's my beautiful assistant slash producer slash wife giving me tips on how to pronounce acronyms. So, as the title kind of says, this is the Hello Drunk World series. I'm the dyslexic developer. I like to kind of, well, not like, since the whole lockdown thing happened, I started this series where I'll have a couple of drinks, try a bit of tech. This time I'm going to be trying something a little bit different, hopefully. Hopefully it goes down well, hopefully it works. A lot of that we will find out. So this week I decided I would try a little kind of different feel and do more of like a podcast style vibe, if it could be called that, because it's not a podcast, video cast, whatever. And look at the Thoughtworks technology radar. So this is something that like I was just talking about before going live. It's a tool that this company Thoughtworks comes out with. I don't really know what else they do, but I remember I seen this maybe 8-9 years ago, and I've kind of seen it pop up every once in a while. And it's, excuse me, it's it looks to me mainly like an enterprise tool for people to see what's hot in tech and what they should be looking into and what they should be investigating and spending money and time on. But I think it can be useful for any kind of dev to get a gauge of what's going on in the industry and what the noteworthy things are. If you're not constantly on Twitter or reading 10 different newsletters a week, it's very hard to get lost in what's going on. So I thought maybe as an exercise for I wanted to read through this, and I'm not going to do it on my own time if I don't have a purpose to do it. So why not do a live stream on it and hopefully get more insights and potentially share some insights as well. So I think we're going to jump over to the screen view, which is shown on Twitch. And let's get started, I guess. So I'm going to keep an eye, if you see me looking down, I'm keeping an eye on the chat. So if you have any kind of comments, questions, or anything along the way that are relevant towards like what I'm talking about or anything in general, shout away. I guess it's a chat there for a reason. So as you see, we're looking at the Thoughtworks site. So this is where they've published their annual, I think it's annual radar. I can't remember the last time I actually looked and seen it one, but they kind of break it down into a few sections. So there's techniques, tools, platforms, and languages and frameworks. So I might jump in and out of the different sections. I'm very focused to web development in my own career and personal kind of interests. So anything front end related or anything, if it's back end, it's going to have to be JavaScript back end for me to really care about it. So I'm going to skip over the likes of C# and all these kind of tools. I'm a heavy React developer, but I'm curious about other frameworks too. So I'm not going to potentially skip over. I'm not going to skip over an Angular, paradigm, but I'm not going to really dive deep into it and provide a lot of feedback or kind of my view. A lot of this as well is going to be my opinion on this. I like to say my uneducated opinion, and I'm a very, very opinionated developer. So take things I say as a pinch of salt, or with a pinch of salt. But I guess let's jump in and look at the technique section. If you'll open, it's going to be very slow today probably. So as I was kind of saying, they have these different, the different quadrants of the radar, and then they break them down in these different sections. So there's adopt, trial, assess, hold. So adopt is going to be, they feel like the industry should be taking on and using this when appropriate. There's never an appropriate time to refactor or rewrite part of your product for anything. then there's trials, so you should be like, you should be looking into that. You should be kind of maybe on a roadmap to be introducing this at some point. And then assess is going to be, you want to have some sort of understanding of what this is and how it works, but you don't want to invest a lot of time into it. And then obviously hold then is, this is either very experimental or doesn't particularly really exist at this point. So you don't want to spend a lot of time, money, and effort on this kind of tech. I have a feeling with techniques is going to be a little bit, a lot of it's going to be abstract and hard to kind of dig into and give an opinion on. But as I say, this is a different format. It'll either go really well or it'll go really wrong, and I may or may not upload the video to YouTube. But we'll see. So, first one that kind of have is right, applying product management to internal platforms. So what happens when we click on this? Oh, it gives you a lot of text. I like the fact that they've bolded something. That means that's the only thing I'm actually going to read, and I'm not going to read the rest of this. Applying product management. Okay, that's just the title. So this means establishing empathy with internal consumers and collaborating with them on the design platform. Yeah, unfortunately. Okay, right. I think this is the idea of like, when we build software, we focus a lot around like, processes, be it agile or if you're stuck in the 80s, like waterfall, and they are how you build and develop and grow your product. But I think this is maybe like talking about like lean this towards internal projects, internal customers, internal platforms. Give them the same processes and love that you would have given to a fully fledged customer that would come with any other product. This doesn't really excite me too much. Infrastructure as code is something I've seen a lot of people talking about. It seems to be getting really, it's kind of taken a lot of buzzwords that I see a lot of people using, like something as code, blah 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 code, and trying to like change the idea. We skim through this, and when we say as code, we mean all the good practices. The drive principles mentioned there. I guess it seems like a very like abstract methodology, like how you develop, how you build your product. A lot of companies are kind of when it says infrastructure, I always think they're like the likes of DevOps. And I have seen a shift with a lot of companies and a lot of people where the developer does a lot of DevOps, and that becomes like you don't really have like an ops team anymore. Like developers own the deployment, they own the infrastructure. I think maybe that's what that's kind of leaning towards. Like my eye was instantly drawn to the third one here, micro front ends. I'm going to bump up the font size in this as well so people can see in the stream. Micro front ends is something that has been talked a lot about recently. It became a trend, then it became a joke, and then it became a meme on Twitter. I see where it wants to go. I just can't see how and why we're going to go that way. I've been looking at it in work and thinking about it, and it's the whole. It all comes from the idea of like you have, we have an ecosystem of products or, a bunch of different dev teams all working, but a lot of them are either working on different tech stacks, different front end frameworks, different libraries. They're maintaining, managing their own internal packages, working with external packages, trying to build up that connection. But you want to try and like bring a lot of that together. You want to have a unification. You want to have that same look and feel. The product has to be seamless, moving in and out. I think this is people are trying to propose micro front ends to be that solution. In the same way that you don't want this one huge GitHub repo that is your entire web application. You want to have it built up with small little projects that can be developed independently, and then finally it all comes together and becomes this one product. Achieving that is a huge task and a huge ask for developers because there is so many external factors, side effects of all the different parts of your web application. And I don't like this term like front end monolith. front ends currently, in essence, you can't call them a monolith. Yes, okay, you bundle a lot of things together to make something, but all those separate things are, you know, contained and managed in isolation. You know, to build an application, you need, say if you're using React, you have to use React, you have to use Redux, you have to use some sort of UI library like Chakra UI. They're all tools that you pull in and use. So that I could class that as a micro front end, because you're offloading a lot of that work to different libraries, different frameworks, different little small packages that do a lot of that work for you. So, but then again, if I built, say if it was an Amazon like replacement, you would maybe have one team building the cart experience, one team building the the user preferences and account management, part of the product, and then someone else is building the actual product search and product visualization. They all could be individual front end applications that then you kind of combine together in the end, and that becomes like your micro front end. Eventually, it all becomes a monolith, but it's how you manage the connection and the integration of all those little separate parts in between each other is where I think this is that's the problem here, and I can't see anything yet that solves the solution. I remember I tried this a couple of years ago when I was working with Marionette and Backbone, and we would done nested and segregated routers, so you could build all these different applications, put them together, but they would all work off different routes. And because we were back then, npm wasn't really used for front end work, so you weren't heavily using npm packages, but you were using more Bower, and Bower just pointed towards a GitHub repo, so you could specify specific versions, and they were only loaded for that version. There wasn't a webpack. We compiled everything into a UMD package and used it that way. I think this is good, and I wonder where it's going to go. I can't see the vision of how we bring it all together. We recently did some work recently where we had iframed in part of an application. So you would click a button and it would load a modal, but that modal's content was an iframe, and but it was seamless. You couldn't see it, and the reason we did that was so that product then was a completely separate product hosted on its own services. It could load its version of React, its version of style components, its versions of whatever, and it didn't cause conflicts with the main product because you weren't bundling, you weren't loading, you weren't trying to compile all these sources together. With many frameworks, at least, you can't run two versions of that framework or that library at the same time because of the conflicts. A lot of frameworks, they rely on the fact that there's going to be some sort of API or windowed global helpers, so you can't load multiple versions at the same time. So being able to do micro front ends and take away, I think the pain of micro front ends is, or the pain of monolith is separating that work out and maintaining cohesion across all of your packages and making sure all the versions of your dependencies are matched up. Micro front ends hasn't solved that yet. There could be something that I'm missing. There could be something out there that's going on. I'm not too sure. But it's interesting that they mentioned React there. So it shows the style can be implemented using various web program mechanism builds. Examples using React.js. Is it? Oh, okay, that's just a link to React, their blog post about React. It's not really a link to how you could solve this with React. I'd be curious to see if anyone in the chat has worked with micro front ends or even heard of micro front ends and kind of experienced the same issues I have. I kind of liken it to, if I can get up Scala. Micro front ends is this idea of I've got, I guess the easiest transferable solution is to think of how the Google product suite works. So Google has a bunch of products. They have Gmail, and then they also have docs, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but let's say sheets. So they're like 3 separate products to me. They are probably built by separate teams, but they probably reuse a lot of the technology between all of them. So, you could class this as a microfront end, and then eventually they're all kind of getting bundled up into one root web application. I don't think this is a case with Google, because I think each of them are off their own subdomain, which makes me think they're probably separately hosted products. And then again, as well, if separate hosted products, you have problems with maintainability and consistency across them because they're not in sync. So you kind of want to take these 3 and then bundle them into one in a this would be your micro front end containing all 3 of them. How you manage dependency in between them, and like what if one product wants to modify the look and feel of a feature because it's moving quicker without breaking that across older products, but you want to have that consistency. So you say like we all use this one component because we want that look and feel, but then Sheets is like, well, we need to add this extra feature on top, but we can't wait for you to update. We need to push out our own version of it. And I guess that's where you could you potentially get the iframing approach, where like each one is wrapped in its own iframe, so you're just loading in whatever it has. The downside to that, I guess, is you're piping duplicate content down to the user, because if they all use React, you're sending the same version of React down 3 times. You can do caching approaches, use CDNs, static analysis to kind of get rid of that kind of stuff, but whatever way you're going to go, you're going to end up in problems. So I do think microphones, I think it's in the I think it should be in the trial. I don't think it should be in the adopt. It's not mature enough yet, or unless I'm just not reading in deep enough yet. I'm not sure. I want to see more from microphones. I think the shit I got on Twitter kind of pushed it down the back of people's stacks of like, this is all I want to dig into. So I realized I spent a lot of time on that, so I'm going to skim over and just pick out ones that I think ethical test and bias. I don't really do a lot of machine learning. I think it's cool, but I think it's way out of my head, and it's probably just a giant switch statement under the hood. Microphones for mobile. I guess like you could say you want to build up multiple small web apps or mobile apps that can then combine into the one mobile app. It's something you can maybe dig into. So yeah, I'm just skipping through to see things that kind of catch my eye. I'm surprised this is in hold. Snapshot testing only. I disagree with like you should never just do snapshot testing only. But it's something it's been around for a while. It's heavily used. There's a lot of champions in the industry who are like, snapshot tests, why do you need anything else? But with every kind of approach to doing anything, there's always ups and downs to it. So if you're unfamiliar with snapshot testing, it's the approach of normally when you write testing, especially for a front-end application, you will say, I have this function that adds 2 numbers. So if I pass it 1 and 1, it's going to give me 2. So that's fine for just functional code. But when code then is rendering a part of your product, so like rendering out a list of products, with each product has a bit of text on it with the product name and a product description. So you want to write a test to say like, if I give it a list of products it's going to give me a list. If I give it like an array of products, it's going to give me a visual list of products. So it seems a bit redundant to write a bit of code to say like, after rendering, look up the DOM and see like, is there a product title, is there a product description tag for each of these items, whereas you could just do a snapshot where you just almost like take like a screenshot or like take a copy of the DOM at that point, and then you can compare against it. They have they have limitations, they have maintenance problems. They're good for basic simple components or basic simple applications where it's if you have this data on the page, it's going to look like this. When it comes to like interactions and long complicated flows, it's going to be hard to maintain writing the test for it because you're snapshotting every point. If your UI is rapidly changing, so like you're a startup environment where you're like completely redoing your UI almost every week, maintaining those snapshots is just a waste of your time because you're going to have to just regenerate them every time. It's something I wouldn't necessarily put it on hold. I think it can fit in well to a model of if you want to cover all your bases and you're a strong testing house, having unit tests, snapshot tests, and then actual visual like automated regression tests are always useful. All of them have their ups and downs. Unit tests, you can easily write a test to pass and not actually test your code. Snapshots, they can be hard to maintain, and sometimes you can miss bugs and breaks in the test. Automation tests are just a nightmare to maintain because anytime something changes, you're having to update them and rewrite them, and they can be limited in the interactions you do as well. So I think we're going to jump into tools and see what's going on in tools. I'll just keep an eye on the chat. Is there anything in the chat that I can see?
I don't know, mine keeps buffering for some reason. There's something up for me, so.
Let's just make sure it is loading okay. This is where you get Inception. I check the stream is working. Yeah, okay. We're still looking okay. It's looking good. So let's take a look at tools, see what's going on. So this kind of, it's funny enough, like this, none of this was planned, none of this was organized. Make sure the light is alright in this. Yeah. So in the last one I was kind of talking, like when they were talking about snapshot testing, I kind of made the point that there's multiple layers of your testing, and one of those is like automated, like I don't know, I've heard them called so many different things. There's like automated regression testing, automated smoke test, and a lot of people call them Selenium tests because most of the time the underlying tool uses, or the tool or whatever you're using, the underlying thing is Selenium. And then surprise surprise, at the top of this tools for adopt is Cypress, which is one of those tools. So if I pull this out and then get Cypress, so Cypress is a really cool, like I want to say Selenium killer. I'm not sure if it actually, I know it uses Chrome driver under the hood, but it's the Selenium killer to like automate your tests. Hopefully this doesn't have audio.
Cypress is an open source test runner built for the modern web.
Yeah. So like it allows you to write JavaScript to interact with your actual application. So you're not writing a unit test to call a function that's on the inside of your code, or it's not taking just like a dump of what the DOM looked at that time. It's doing like visual checks. So you target DOM elements. As I say, like you're scrolling the page, you're interacting with the application like a real user would interact with it, and it allows you to screenshot, allows you to record videos and do all this kind of stuff. So it does it tests the product like a user would, but because it's automated, it saves a lot of time and you can run it constantly. I know a few people that run this as part of like their CI/CD environment. So they'll like push a PR up and it'll run their Cypress suite, and allow it, to kind of give an inspection and run and give a visual check on everything. Make sure like clicking that button actually works. A snapshot won't guarantee you that clicking that button will actually work, or that if the button was blue and now it's gone green, it won't break if that button went green, because you could be using CSS which wouldn't be tied to it. Like, unless you're using inline styles, you're not going to pick that up. So I definitely agree with like adopt sectors. It's something I've wanted to be looking for a while. Maybe do another stream on it. But the ecosystem and the community around it is constantly growing. They're like throwing out features all the time, which I think is really cool. Figma is like the new hotness right now. It's like the go-to designer tool that I liken it to, like, it's competing with XD. So like you can do all this kind of like, it's Sketch, InVision, and Abstract all in one. So you can design in it, you can do continuous feedback in it, you can share live mocks, you can do all these kind of things. I think it's picking up steam because it's brand new and it's not Adobe, and I would guess to say it's probably not priced in the same range as Adobe prices would be. So a lot of people are probably jumping on for that. That's something I do agree with. I think it's, the new design tools always there. But I'm not a designer. So let's see, what are they looking at trial for tools? So Dojo is something I've never actually used. See the link with Docker. I don't do Docker. I'll skip over that. This is something I think is going to get more popular, especially in our current climate where everyone's working from home. One, Visual Studio Code is like the hipsters IDE. I seen a great stream from another tech, well, a better tech live streamer, Kitsa, he's called. But I remember seeing a comment from him, and he was like, his line was, Visual Studio Code, or VS Code, is a text editor with a mature, like, well, not mature, like with a plugin ecosystem. WebStorm is an IDE. There's a difference between these. Like, Visual Studio Code is what Sublime Text or Atom wanted to be. Now, whenever Atom was on the market, people weren't jumping on top of that. And I think VS Code, everyone jumped on top of that because it was well funded. It was a surprising thing to come into Microsoft, and a lot of people then jumped on the Microsoft bandwagon because of it. But I think as well the fact that it was native TypeScript support, every Angular developer in the world was like, "Yep, I'm going to use this." It didn't hurt the fact that it was free, but their live sharing feature is really cool. Really, you can integrate a lot of stuff into it. So let's do live share. So let's see what's it all about. Yeah, so like it's the ability to then start like live coding from your IDE without having to share the screen, which is going to be laggy, and you have like two cursors and all this kind of stuff. I wonder, does WebStorm have something like that? Live share. Yeah, let's see. It must. Like, JetBrains, they're a mature enough company. Okay, maybe not. Although that was 2018, so they might have built something, there might be an extension. But yeah, I think with the current market of everyone working from home, you can't like pair program at a desk anymore. Doing like a Zoom call and then giving like controls to someone else is fine, but it's a bit laggy, it's a bit annoying having to use someone else's mouse and keyboard. But able to do it through Visual Studio Code means you're both using the same IDE, you're both seeing what you're all typing, and all you need then is all you need is audio call in the background to then work with that, and you're both coding on the same code base. I'm not a big fan of pair programming, and that's why I've never gone to the length of actually digging in and seeing if WebStorm had something like that. If I could only get through Visual Studio Code, I would maybe try it out. I would maybe use it just for live sharing, but then stick to the rest of it. I'm very much like I have my own key combinations, my own shortcuts, my own bindings that match the flow that I've developed for the last 10 years. When I go to use someone else's computer, I can't actually code on it. I have to use my own. So a lot of times, if I'm pair programming or I have to work with someone, the first thing I'll say is push up a branch. I'm going to pull it down, and then I'm going to work on it, and then we'll do it that way. It's probably not the best approach for someone, but it works for me. So there was nothing else in trial that it kind of caught my eye and I thought was interesting. Then assess seems to be all kind of focusing a little bit more back-end wise with Apache and config-cat and gitpod. What's gitpod? Build most software following a two-step process. Check a repository and then run a single build strip. This is interesting. Gitpod just seems like a CLI tool that's going to allow you to pull a repo and run its build command. And my Chrome is playing up. Yeah. Or either that, or it feels like it's kind of like a code sandbox. That's another thing that's missing here. Code sandbox should be in here somewhere. It should be in adopt, or it should be in trial at least. It's a wonderful tool. I have it open at all times. So actually, yeah. So leading on to that, I was talking about that text streamer Kitze, I think he's pronounced. So he has this tool, CZ. CZ is very, very cool. If you're, I say like if you're like a contracting dev or a dev that works on like random projects, but I guess like if you're a company that cares about responsiveness and wants to make sure their product works on any platform, like if you're not in the enterprise environment, this is something to look into and try out. The whole idea around it is, see if I can get this playing without sound. Likely everything's on Vimeo. It's under the hood. What is built is an Electron browser that can emulate a URL in multiple different configurations. So like emulating phones, tablets, different browser sizes, but it all does it in one pane. So you get to see everything in one go. And as you're deving away and making changes, they're constantly refreshing, and you can like interact and do certain things with it. So like some of the stuff is like turn off animations, because if you have like 10 browsers all doing a CSS animation, it's gonna kill the whole thing. But it's having that one stop shop of like at the minute in Chrome you can emulate devices. So I can like pull this out and boom, emulate. But that's only for like, so I'm only looking at iPad. If I go iPhone X, that's fine. But what if I want to be able to, I want to test my changes on iPhone X, the Samsung S20, an iPad in landscape and portrait. I also want to do it on the minimum resolution that I support, the maximum resolution support, without having to do the same steps each time. If I could see them and visualize them all in one go, it would give me a better platform to kind of try it out. This is a definite thing to, I wonder what section to put it in. I would move that up a level. I would put that in the trial. They're dropping a lot of features and building a lot of really interesting things outside of just, I think when you look at it, you just think, okay, this is just a responsive browser design tool. But I seen a recent release that kind of dug into more features around being able to manage, create, and organize projects, so you can run your actual app from the CZ tool, because it can just trigger your npm scripts. You can then manage. They did a release recently that you can manage external sites that are useful for your project. So if you have a Trello board or a Jira board, you can have them only show up when you open that project. And there's a lot of really cool stuff. I think that definitely should be moved up a level, way above these kind of features. Like this is, if you if you develop for the web and you want to target every platform, you know, this will save you a lot of time. I don't know how much it is priced, but I imagine it's reasonably priced. And then this brings back memories of Snowpack. So in one of, I think it was the second, maybe third stream, I took a dive into Snowpack to kind of see, you know, how it worked and what it was capable of. Again, it's in the SS. I think it kind of belongs there at the minute, mainly because it's taken away, or it's kind of moving away from the standard that how we build and deploy software, which isn't a bad thing. But if you're building an experimental site that you want to ship to maybe a limited number of customers, you don't want to. You can experiment. You can try new things. If you have a big product that's getting hundreds of thousands of users, you need to be careful about when and how you experiment. Snowpack is really good because it builds those dependencies in at runtime. I recommend to fire up the Snowpack site quickly, and they've changed it up a lot. Yeah. So, as it says here, like, it replaces your dev bundler with environmental, where the dev environment only builds files that are requested by a browser. The way I liken it to is you know, if you're working with the likes of Crit React app that uses Webpack, every time you make a change, it's going to pull in your npm dependencies, rebuild and rebundle, and then reload them. If you're working with Snowpack, once you pull in the npm dependency, it builds the bundled version and stores it, and I keep calling it a Snowpack. It builds it in a Snowpack kind of location and references that every time, unless you explicitly say throw away that almost cached like version and then use this version, because your dependencies don't change that often between like reloads. So why do you need to rebuild them? Why do you need to why do you need to deal with them again? This is kind of, it's really good developer experience, which feeds back into user experience at some point. But I think the benefit of it is very focused towards developers, which is hard to sell up the stack. If a developer says, oh, if I use this thing, it makes me happy, compared to, oh, if we do this thing, the customer will save loads of money, or they will do things twice as quick, and it's building up that kind of balance between the developer happiness and the customer happiness. But again, it kind of lists out in the key features, like all the kind of cool things about it. I can see this growing. I just want to see a more mature ecosystem, it being adopted by another big tool. I think if something like Create React App adopted Snowpack, it would shoot up in popularity. Same way that Code Sandbox, go Create Sandbox. I think it creates a basic one. But yeah, okay, that's a React one. But like Code Sandbox, it adopted Parcel for the vanilla version of it, even though the vanilla really shouldn't need. I refreshed the type of something wrong. So Code Sandbox uses Parcel for its vanilla sandbox. Realistically, vanilla sandbox shouldn't need a bundler, but it uses Parcel anyway. That's what helped grow Parcel's popularity. If something big starts using this, it'll get bigger. And then, okay, nothing is on hold under tools. I'm really liking the fact that a majority of this stuff is front end focused and web focused. I don't know if this is a shift in how tech is going at the moment, or with that whole kind of, I think I was talking to someone before, like the whole idea of serverless is going to take over everything, which will reduce the need for someone to be building like a Java server on Tomcat or Apache and having to deal with all that kind of stuff. Is that going to kill the back-end developer role, or the full stack developer at least? That unicorn role that doesn't exist? and front end development is going to become more prominent, as well as mobile app development or native app development. Um, but yeah, okay, we hit some back end stuff. So we're looking at platforms. .NET, I don't care. Is TIO Kubernetes, don't care. So Firebase is an interesting one to see there. Okay, yeah, it's gone on a significant evolution. I remember I looked at Firebase maybe 5 years ago, and I thought it was a really cool thing because, well, one, like the free plan is free, and it gives you enough to go on. And the way I liken it to is almost like a NoSQL database in the cloud that all you need to do is connect an API to, and it's being used a lot from what I can see. And their pricing is quite well for the free plan as well. You get a lot of what you need. This is a great go-to if you need to build a side project that needs some sort of data storage, but you don't want to pay for it because this side project may only last a week and then you're going to throw it away, and you don't want to have to host it or maintain or manage it yourself. A lot of times when I've used this, it's always just been like, I need to store a list of products that I want to fetch back, and I need to be able to then set the products somehow. I don't care about authentication, I don't care about anything else. This can handle authentication if you dig into the docs and stuff. And as well, whenever you connect up there's a React plugin for this. Let's see if my browser will work. So there is, I think I followed the tutorial, but there might be an npm package for this. Yeah, so there's React binding for Firebase. What I like about this is it runs like a WebSocket in the background, so it's constantly up. Like as the data changes, it updates your app, which is super useful because you're not having to post off your data, wait for that to be complete, and then go off and fetch the data again. So I like the fact that it's WebSocket enabled. It's a NoSQL style database. I think you can do relational data as well. I've just been like dumping raw JSON in there and hoping for the best. It kind of reminds me a lot that Mongo Labs that we're using MongoDB as their kind of implementation. Being able to see like quick plug and play ability, great for hackathons, side projects, commercial projects. I don't know. I have not seen it used to scale. I imagine if it works quick and easy for a simple project, it will scale. And if you going away from the kind of NoSQL style things, but if you manage a complex schema and take care of things, it could definitely work. I'm just curious about hot chocolate. Is the GraphQL ecosystem keeping hot chocolate? Hot chocolate is a GraphQL server for .NET. Nope. Backend .NET, don't care. Although I like the fact that it's called hot chocolate. Let's see, what else have we got here? Anything else that jumps out? Trying to think of things like I've kind of seen or heard people talk about on Twitter, but there's nothing huge. Like machine learning is always going to grab someone's eyes. I'm glad that it's in the SS column. Node overload. Is that even a term? Technology, especially white paper ones, have a tendency to be overused. What we're seeing at the moment is node overload. It tends to use Node.js indiscriminately or for the wrong reasons. Among these two stand out, in our opinion. Firstly, we frequently hear that Node should be used so all programming languages can be done in one language. Oh shit, okay, that's what I was talking about at the very start of this. Our view remains that polyglot programming is a better approach. This is an interesting view. Because I'm a front-end developer, I lean towards using Node for a back-end project if I'm going to write some back-end. In my experience, I've only built small side projects using Node as a back-end, and it's always been building something out in Express. and you kind of you create a routes folder, and it all feels side project hackathonish. I would never never expect a team of developers to work on this at some point. Um, that doesn't necessarily take away from the fact that Node.js is a back end programming tool. But I kind of yeah, and I guess that's completely against what this argument is for. I'm just kind of speaking to like my experience with this. This idea of like polyglot programming, I'm assuming that just means being able to write multiple languages. Yeah, the there's two arguments to this. If you want a developer to be full stack, and you want them to be able to do the best they can possibly do you want them to be an expert in JavaScript when it comes to the web side of things? So they know the latest ES features. They know about the latest frameworks, the latest libraries, and the latest patterns for them to do things the best possible way to give your user the best experience when it comes to web first. And then at the same time, you're like, okay, right, so now we want you to build a microservice architecture and host it in Kubernetes and use Spinnaker and AWS and all these kind of things. Okay, so that person now needs to be an expert in JavaScript and web, but they now also need to be an expert in say like Java and Gradle or Groovy and all these different ecosystems in the back end. If you could say, right, we write JavaScript in the front, we write JavaScript in the back, be an expert in JavaScript, be interested in the sugar on top of it, you're going to have potentially a better experience. Whether or not the tooling is up to the challenge, the developer is going to be able to like build quicker, build better because they're focused and they can understand what they're doing. My solution to that is just cut down the middle. Hire a backend developer who will sit and write Java, deal with CI/CD pipelines, Spinnaker, Kubernetes, AWS, but then also hire a front-end developer who is going to write a super fast React application if that exists. They're going to be on top of all the cool hot frameworks that are popping up on Twitter, and then build an API layer in between the two of them. So one becomes the consumer and one becomes the provider, and they just have that relationship. With tools like GraphQL, even you can do this with REST as well, and it works. You can have two people build one really powerful application, where one is concerned with on-demand spinning up performance, where the other is how can we like suck as much performance out of the browser and manage user interactions and expectations. There's no unicorn developer in the mix. That gets rid of this term of a polyglot programming, because you're not having to write the same thing on both sides. If you're on your own and you're doing this, take tools, take methodologies that can do this for you. Serverless is the new thing. I'm surprised it hasn't been mentioned yet. Use that to say, well, I don't care, I don't want a server, I want a function that writes data database that isn't on the front end because of security and authentication. So you write that function in JavaScript, you write your front end in JavaScript, you host your back end, you host your database in Firebase, and you're off to the races. But I find that was interesting. Like that's not even that's not a platform. It's just shitting on a platform. Okay, so I'll go into language and frameworks and hopefully not spend too much time rambling. I'm loving the fact that the first two are React. Is there okay? Kotlin's there, so I was gonna say that this it's all front end stuff. React hooks, it's a given. If you've not used React hooks at the moment, it's just a much easier way of writing. And they're mentioning the next one already in the description for the first one. It feels like this was heavily sponsored. If you've not been using React hooks yet, it's just such an easy way to write, interactive React code. Like I fire up a quick sandbox. I want a button that when I click it, it increases the counter. Good. I had to do some coding as part of this. So I define two things: counter, set counter. I call React use state and make it 0 by default. And then let's print out our count. So this is our counter. Create a button. Say up, because we're up in our counter. On clicking of this, I want to say set counter to be counter plus 1. So that didn't work. And there's me saying this is going to be so easy. I'm not getting dug into the depths of this. Oh, I spelled on click wrong. Phew. So that quick, I have a stateful web application. I didn't have to deal with classes and namespaces and functions and data bindings. I'm not shitting on Angular, but if I was doing this in Angular, I wonder, is there an Angular template? But I have to define a service and a controller and all this random kind of shit. So right, plus one Angular, one C. I don't know how to write Angular anymore. It's changed so much. I did Angular 1 and now it's in 9. But look at all that shit. The React starter had 3 files in one folder. And this is even rendering. It's so out of shape. But we'll leave that for now. So yeah, React definitely adopt. If you're using React applications, they're mature enough now. It's not like you're shipping brand new code to production. React testing library, yeah, without a doubt, testing has become such a contentious thing. React testing library is actually funny. It's part of the testing JavaScript testing library. So Kinsey Dodds is built out. It covers every framework that you can think of, and as well vanilla JavaScript. It's a really cool tool to definitely try and look into. It does change a little bit of your shift in how you test. Some people do a lot of testing where you mock out external dependencies and then use that way to say if the button was called, it was going to call this anyway, and then now this returns this fake response that I have, so you don't have to have a full interaction. React Testing Library is more focused again on what is the user doing. Are they clicking the button? Are they scrolling the list? Are they doing this? Are they doing that? And I think it's the right test approach, but it has its limitations. Mocks are useful when you have a huge application. I always think you test components in isolation. I kind of use the example where you have a tree structure. If I can get the pencil tool, if I test that, I know that was really bad. If I test that node, that's fine. If I really test for this, that's fine because I can deal with all these happening without mocking these out. But if I then write a test for this, if I don't mock, I need to make sure all of this works with whatever I gave this, and all the external third-party calls that's going on here and the side effects that happens with these. I make sure that this all works, and that's where I kind of find some of that testing too hard to build and too hard to drive drive across, because you're at that point you may as well be using Cypress because you're testing your product. You're not testing a component. I'm skipping a review. Everyone knows about Vue.js. It's fine. Okay, and then we're gonna close off skimming through. So CSS and JS. CSS and JS with regards to style components, yes. Not with regards to CSS modules. I think that was kind of ill-informed approach where you were just writing CSS and importing it into the component file, where you could have done that in different approaches, or you could have just scoped class names better. Style components kind of does something similar on the hood, but it works and writes better in JavaScript. I definitely would go for something like that. I wish I could look into some of these things like Rust and Kotlin. I always see passed about all the time, but they're always to do with like building some crazy computational cryptocurrency tool. Another familiar name, Tailwind CSS. A really good tool for building your CSS out and building your styles, but I worry about its maturity of, when I go to debug an issue and I see a class name has like 20 different classes attached to it, all with the shorthand terminology. That works, I guess, but it's hard to read and it's hard to understand what's going on. Whether it's just, I'm not used to Tailwind. I don't know. I wonder, I would love to see this in an enterprise application being, that's lived for about a year with a couple of developers working on it, just to see how easy it is to deal with it. I feel like what will happen with Tailwind in most places is they'll build an abstraction layer on top of it that is like a Tailwind manager, where you can like call a function that will apply certain Tailwind classes for you, or people will end up either writing their own Tailwind classes or writing their own like plugins and mixins on top of it. As a foundation, I think it's great, but it kind of it takes you back to the days of like Bootstrap, where you had like BTN and then BTN dash primary. They conveyed what the purpose of the element was, not what the styling of it was. Where Tailwind is going to be color dash, it was supposed to be like height dash whatever, padding dash whatever, margin dash whatever, color dash blue for primary. So when you look at it, you see, okay, this is a button that has these styles, but is this a primary button? Is it a secondary button? If you're thinking more of like a design system approach, I think it lives well under assess. XState, I think that could maybe move up to trial. If you follow David K Piano. I got it. By searching it'll probably show up. Yeah. He created React XState. The funny thing is, like, he didn't invent something new. He didn't create this magical thing. All he did was, bring state machines to the world of React and front-end frameworks. I don't think it's just React. We can touch on other things. But it's this idea of like a state machine approach. Kelsey Dodds released a great blog post recently about you shouldn't have a is loading state. You should have like, I don't want to say the word state, but like a current state. So like current state equals loading, current state equals complete, current state equals failed. So you can then assert on that instead of having an if, like if is loading, then if is error, if is failed, if is complete. You have like a switch statement. They can like assert on that state, and the state is finite, and it can only be certain values, so you can never get out of step, and you can handle every possible scenario. Whereas if you have like 5 variables, all are booleans, you have as many variables times their indexes, of how many possible states there could be. Using the state machine is really good to reason about and have rationale over, as well as the fact that you can, easily place the state machine in a certain way and say, from here it only goes there, only goes there. What does it look like when it is that now? I find that very interesting. And it's kind of good that it's made there. I would definitely move it up into the trial approach, and then good old enzyme on hold. Did they give a reason why? We don't always move deprecated tools. Is enzyme deprecated? I don't think it is. Yeah, okay, right. It was replaced by React Testing Library because the React team officially adopted React Testing Library as their preferred solution. That doesn't necessarily kill it. Like, the tool is still there. It's still actively worked on. If I check the last commit message, I would hope it would be. When's the last commit? 21st of April. Yeah, we're not too far behind. I just feel like testing has changed and people's perception of testing changed. But I don't know if it's just my naivety, but a lot of people who are telling you this is how you should test, unless bar the React team, but again, React team are isolated in their own sense. Not a lot. Most of them are these trainers or tutorial course makers. None of them work in an enterprise level application that has 4 or 5 years worth of backlog of old components, old code, old dependencies, and huge tree structures. It's all a greenfield solution. I really wonder. I would love them to take a hold of my work app and say write a test for this that follows your exact instructions and your patterns, to see what happens. But yeah, I don't think that'll ever happen. But I'm kind of sad to see enzyme go on hold. I do want to move the testing library, but I don't want to. I just moved from Mocha and Scion to Jest, and that took a huge migration path. I don't want to now migrate out of my, enzyme into React Testing Library because I doubt there's a code mod for it. But yeah, that was interesting. We kind of looked through the different sections of Radar. I was very, very surprised to see it was all front end in every section. There was something to do with web, something to do with JavaScript on every section. When I remember looking at the last time I actually really looked at this was maybe 9 years ago. It was just wall to wall .NET, Gradle, bit of Jekyll here and there. There was some NoSQL was the big thing back then, and that was all over the place. But it was all how do we write .NET or Java in a different way that can make it performant and better and cooler. I'm surprised to see web has taken over. It's a trend that I like to see because it keeps me happily employed. But I wonder, maybe is there another Radar that I'm not seeing that's all back-end work? Because I'm assuming the back-end ecosystem must keep growing, must keep adapting. But maybe not. But yeah, I think we'll take the end of the Radar there and call that an end to what we look at this week. Hope you enjoyed this kind of podcasty style deep dive into something that actually is happening. I'm reading through, gave me an excuse to read through the Radar and see certain things that I was I'm surprised to see there, or I'm surprised to see placed in certain places. I thought some things would have been higher or lower, but yeah, it was interesting to follow along with that. Thanks.